My name is Sheila Reid, and I've worked as a physiotherapist in the National Health Service for 25 years. But I've been interested in mindfulness since I was a little girl, because my mum used to take me beside the sea where I lived as a little girl, and she used to get me holding onto the railings, and she used to say, "Can you smell the air of the sea?" And I used to smell the air. And then she said, "Can you listen to the sound of the waves coming and going? Tell me when the tide changes." So I would stand very quietly till I could hear the tide change. And then she would say, "Look at the sparkles on the water." And she had me mesmerised. And so throughout my childhood, I had a very mindful time. And then when I did the 8-week, I did a mindfulness-based stress reduction course through NES, which is the National Health Service Education for Scotland. And I did the course with them, and I thought, oh, I've known this a long, long time. But I needed to know more, and that's why I enrolled with the Masters at the University of Aberdeen. And I was very fortunate, because when I was looking for a topic for my dissertation, I was actually asked if I would like to introduce a little bit of mindful awareness to a falls class. A falls class is where people that are living independently in the community have begun to fall and had a few falls. And they come after being assessed, they come to a physiotherapy-led class to improve their muscle strength, their coordination and their balance. And I went along, and I was able to, I thought I could do that, and I could maybe weave a little bit of mindfulness through the class. But it was magical for me, because I was able to contribute my physiotherapy skills with my mindfulness skills, so I was very fortunate. But of course, I had to face the NHS ethical situation. But because I was actually working with a service that was already in place, I was able to call it a service evaluation. And I was changing things a little bit, because I was changing emphasis. So the physiotherapist would always tell the patients in the class, you must be aware. So I was just extending their awareness. And I was also encouraging the patients to be very mindful about their walking. But the physiotherapist was teaching them walking. So I actually didn't need NHS ethical approval to do this study, because it was deemed as a service development. So that was very fortunate. And the study question that I proposed was, what is the impact of teaching mindful awareness to elderly people at risk of falling? Now, a lot of people think physiotherapy is about physical modalities, but actually the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy really encourages us to be compassionate with our client group, and to listen to what their needs are. So in the class I was really curious, how does it feel to have fallen? How are you getting on at home? How does it feel to do these breathing awareness practices that I was introducing to them? And so because I was asking all these questions, I was able to gather some qualitative information. And on the every falls class in Aberdeen does a lot of qualitative work before and after the course as well, and I was able to take that information. So the methodology I used was a convergent mixed methods approach. So just the same as Jackie did, we took information from all sides, and that just really gave us more of a picture of what was going on with these people. The two things that I did introduce, the two measures I introduced, was a Likert fear of falling, because these people, from my literature research, I realised people are very humiliated when they fall, and embarrassed when they fall, and often they won't discuss that they've fallen because of the fear of losing their independence and being put in a care home. And the other measure I introduced was the Cognitive Affective Mindfulness Score, which is the CAMS score revised, which is it's quite a simple 10-part question, although this client group struggled with it a bit, but I did introduce that. But the important test for this study was the timed up and go test, which is done for everybody that goes to our falls class in Aberdeen. And it's a very simple test. We ask the client to get up from a chair, walk for 3 metres and sit back down in the chair. We time that and they repeat it 3 times and we get an average. And this was the one that really changed at the end of the course. So when we compared this study that I did with a study running at the same time, this study I did, on average, when they did the timed up and go test, they improved by 9.7 seconds on their first score that they did 12 weeks previously. A study going on at the same time in Aberdeen, they improved by 2.4 seconds. And I also got the figures for a study done in London at a similar time, and they'd improved by 6.9 seconds. So this study, when I compared the 3 groups, this study improved by 51% over the other 2 studies because of the input of increasing the awareness. No, I'll just go back, sorry, I was just ahead of myself there. So really, all I'd done was to weave breathing practice into the class. I'd introduced some mindfulness of the body, using the body scan, and I did mindful walking with them. And when I did the mindful walking with them, I actually gave them a little mantra to use. It's like slow and steady, or calm and slow. And I encouraged them to use their own mantra. So one lady said, when she's having a crisis at home, I just say calm, calm, and that helped her, even though it wasn't when she was walking. And another lady said when she went for her shopping, she would put a bag in each hand and then walk in time to slow and steady, so that she was using it to help in her everyday life. The other findings that I found that they all improved their balance. There's a very simple balance test called the 4-point balance test, and if any of you want to practice that, I can show it to you afterwards, because it's actually nice to know this test, maybe to take home to family members or to see if you're at risk of falling. So I can show you that test if you come and find me afterwards, because 1/3 of older adults actually fall, and if those older adults, the ones that end up in hospital, 12% of them die within the first year of getting to hospital. So it's a very, very big thing for the elderly. And then the other thing that I did was when I did my little chats with the class, and I was really interested in how they were getting on at home and how they were coping with the fear of falling. And they said that being at home was fine, but the biggest fear was when they went outside, and they wouldn't go outside on their own because they always needed somebody to hold on to. And if you think yourself, just stepping up on a curb when you're walking across a road and trying to step up a curb, it actually takes a lot of balance and coordination to do that. And that's what they said was the hardest, was crossing a road and stepping up without having somebody solid to hold on to. So that was their huge fear. And 2 of the ladies had terrible falls during the course of the 12 weeks. One fell down the stairs, and one fell on her face and came in with horrible bruising. But both those ladies said that they were less fearful of walking outside after the course. So 5 out of the 6 participants were less fearful of falling after the course. So, in conclusion, by introducing some awareness to the falls class, it really made a big impact on their physical abilities, and because their physical abilities had improved so much, they really reduced their fear of falling and were able to achieve their goals and get outside and get a bit more enjoyment in their life instead of being stuck at home and frightened of going out. So the physiotherapist I worked with, she said she had done the MBSR course as well, and she said she would continue using it because it had an effect on her as well as on the class. And my mindfulness supervisor in the National Health Service was going to take the figures and take it forward as part of a larger study, and she's hoping to do a much larger study. Okay, thank you very much for listening.